Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome back to Steelers Almighty. This is our report card episode of the Steelers 27-22 win over the Baltimore Ravens. Man, it was a typical Steelers-Ravens football game, ladies and gentlemen. There were some good performances. Some, after watching the All-22, and watching the game, it might not be everything that we think. Obviously the Steelers gave up a lot of rushing yards, but we'll kind of break that down and what it actually looked like and grade accordingly. I encourage everybody to get in the comments and grade along with me. That's one of the things that I love that you guys do. So I appreciate that. Remember, all 22 is coming out tomorrow. The offensive line, again, we'll talk about that here in a quick second. But again, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in the comments section, and always hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Let's get into this, people. So first things first, quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. I thought Aaron Rodgers was phenomenal. He moved around well. Hell, he ran for a damn touchdown, and it wasn't like a naked boot play or anything. He just, okay, play action, nobody to the left. I'm just going to outrun these guys to the corner of the end zone, and he did it. He only had, I think it was two bad balls, one to Jonnu, but even the one that got batted down, I mean, that's not his fault. I just thought he played a phenomenal game. Again, I've said this many times this year about Aaron Rodgers. He played the quarterback position well, saw what the Ravens were trying to do, used the play clock to his advantage so they would have to show what they were doing as far as coverage, and he attacked downfield. I thought the plan, we'll talk about Arthur Smith's plan here in a minute, but I thought being aggressive, especially early in the game, I mentioned that in the pregame leading up to it, that was something the Steelers needed to do. Throw the football down the field because the Ravens don't get after the quarterback. That's not what they do. They haven't done it all year. And that one of the things on why the Steelers haven't attacked downfield is because they don't trust the offensive line to protect. Well, when you're playing against a team that can't get after the quarterback and the Ravens can't do that, you're going to have time. And they had time and they knew it and they took advantage of it. Rodgers was on target with deep balls. That's something that he hadn't been as of late. He had been off target throwing deep down the field. I just thought he played a hell of a game. I gave him an A+ on the day. I really did. I thought, look, I know the end of the game and people will look at that, but that wasn't his fault. That's conservative play calling. I just thought Aaron Rodgers was phenomenal in this football game. As bad as he was against Buffalo, and he was bad, he was equally as good in this football game. And I know there's some people that say, oh, Big B, you said he was terrible last week. Well, he was. Two things can be true. He was bad last week. He was phenomenal this week. We just grade it how we see it, people. That's all. You don't have to necessarily agree, but we grade it how we see it. Aaron Rodgers played a phenomenal game. Move on. So, running back position, look, there weren't a whole lot of running lanes in this football game. You know, uh, Heck, Gainwell had 15 yards. Warren had 13 yards. I mean, it wasn't a pretty football game at all as far as running for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I will say this. The Ravens' game plan was to take away what the Steelers were trying to do running the football. They stacked the box, put a lot of guys near the line of scrimmage, and just said, we're not going to let you run the football. We don't believe that you can, and we also don't believe that your wide receivers can beat us one-on-one. And that's what the Ravens did. They just said, you're not going to run it. And sometimes when you got too many guys at the line of scrimmage, you can't block them all. Here's another thing, and we'll talk about not having Darnell Washington, but that's a key component, but they couldn't run it. And it's not the running back's fault that there weren't running lanes. You can't blame them for not having running lanes. But they were pretty good catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, we saw Jaylen Warren. That was wide open. Him making an explosive play. Again, Kenneth Gainwell continues to make explosive plays. They were very good catching the ball out of the backfield in this football game, ladies and gentlemen. That can't go when you're wide receivers and you basically have one wide receiver that's doing anything and you're relying on running backs to do the heavy lifting opposite of your other receiver, and then they do it, you got to give him credit for that. So that's why I gave him a B minus on the day. Maybe it could have been a little bit higher, but there's are some times when the running backs could have helped the offensive line, but there just wasn't a lot of running lanes. There just wasn't. And again, some of the stuff Steelers are running for first downs is designed to get short yardage for first downs. Well, that's the job. It's like, hey, it's 3rd and 1, and we're going to run it up the middle. All we want is to get a yard and a half, and they got a yard and a half. Well, that keeps the chains moving. I'm never a guy that's going to be upset by that. Just give me the first down. Yeah, it doesn't look good on the yards per average. I get that. But if it's 3rd and 1 and you give me a yard and a half, I'll take it. Keep the chains moving and keep it going. And that's what the Steelers did a pretty good job of that the other day against the Ravens. Now, as far as the wide receivers are concerned, look, DK Metcalf did his thing. He was given opportunities down the field, legitimate opportunities where he could catch the football. Look, that's what you have to do with DK. You got to attack down the field. That's what he's good at. What he's not good at, and the Steelers continue to do this, look, DK Metcalf isn't a 50-50 ball, end zone fade type of guy. His hands are not the best. That's not what he's good at. The Steelers have to stop doing that. But other stuff, getting them in stride, down the field, slants over the middle, deep crossers, which we saw one. Now, that was kind of a broken play, but it is what it is. It happened. I thought DK was phenomenal. Again, they gave him opportunities to do the things that he does well. On the other side, look, not having Darnell Washington for the majority of the game hurts. Jonnu Smith was pretty much non-existent. They had one bad ball that Rodgers threw to him, but other than that, they didn't throw him the ball. Freiermuth, again, I thought Freiermuth was open a couple of times. They just didn't go his way. He caught 2 balls. It was mostly running backs. Look, I didn't understand the Roman Wilson benching. I'll be frank, quite honest. I don't mind Adam Thielen being moved up. I don't even necessarily mind MVS being moved up. That's fine. But my problem is that Roman Wilson had been getting open basically the last month, and they just hadn't gone his way. They hadn't looked his way, or they would throw him the ball, uncatchable footballs. Well, that's not his fault. And I just thought you're stunning the growth of a guy for no reason. Look, the wide receivers, I gave him an A- on the day. I thought they were really good. I thought DK was really good. And when given opportunities, they were fine. I just didn't necessarily like benching Roman Wilson because you bring up Scout MVS, hell. You bring him up and you threw it to him one time. Well, Roman Wilson couldn't have done that? Like, you couldn't have had him out there to just target him once? Sure, you could have. So, to me, it didn't make sense. Rodgers did speak about it after the game, talking about professionalism. And then he said, he kind of backtracked, well, I'm not saying that Roman and Calvin don't have professionalism. Well, yeah, you just said that. So maybe that's part of it, is that Roman Wilson needs to have a little bit more professionalism and practice better. And Rodgers talked about practicing better. But hopefully Wilson gets a helmet next week, because that's terrible to sit down your 3rd-round pick from a year ago this deep into the season for a guy that's basically not played any football all year. That's not a good thing. Moving on. So the offensive line, look, man, there were not a lot of running room. There just wasn't. They didn't create a lot of running room for running backs in this football game. Twofold. One, they didn't do a good job. That was easy to see. But also, you got to look a little deeper. That was the Ravens' plan. Like, there's one play where the Ravens have 7 people on the line of scrimmage. The Steelers go big boy football. They put 7 guys on the line of scrimmage, and people are like, man, nobody blocked Roquan Smith. There was nobody available to block him. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? That was the Ravens' plan. We're not going to let you run the football. But you also know what the Ravens didn't do? They didn't need pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Like I mentioned, that deep crossing route to DK Metcalf, 7.5 seconds to throw the football, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness. And yeah, Rodgers moved around, but guys were blocking. They were blocking. And that to me was the difference. Look, as bad as what they were, and it was bad running the football, but there were reasons for that. But they stopped the Ravens from getting, I think they had one hit. Like Rodgers wasn't on the ground all day other than his own self. Like he didn't get knocked down. There wasn't these pressures. The O-line did its work. So for me, I gave the offensive line a C because you stopped them from getting any pressure on your quarterback, even on a day that you couldn't run the football. I mean, let's just call it what it is. 34 yards rushing is disgusting. And you're not going to be able to beat many teams running the football for 34 yards, regardless of what you do passing the football. So they got to fix it. It's kind of been broken over the last several games here. They got to get back to being able to run the football like they were earlier. But I'm going to give them credit. Like I said, the game plan was to be aggressive, to throw the ball down the field. To do that, you have to give your quarterback time, and the Steelers did that. And not to mention, they were down to their fourth left tackle. Dylan Cook is the fourth guy. Broderick Jones out, probably out for the year. Calvin Anderson out, probably out for the year. Andres Pete got concussed during the game. So you have to bring this guy in. He played pretty well, people. So a C for the O-line. Like I mentioned, I liked what I saw out of that group in the passing game. We got to fix the running game. Some of that will be schematic, but some of that's them. And then overall for the offense, look, 27 points, 318 total yards. You'd like to see more. Don't get me wrong, but we basically took the fourth quarter off. But they didn't give up any sacks. They averaged 6.2 yards a play. We were aggressive for 3/4 of the football game. We got super conservative in the fourth quarter. I mean, that had Mike Tomlin written all over it. We were up 8 points, and we just put it in the tank. I mean, we had 9 plays for 3 total yards in the fourth quarter. That's disgusting. But and as mad as I am at Arthur Smith for that, I just have a feeling that was Mike Tomlin saying we can let the defense get home, and that's the wrong approach. It's absolutely the wrong approach. But overall, pretty good by the offense. I gave the offense a B for the day because, again, they were aggressive. I get it that we couldn't run it, but there were reasons for that. Sometimes there are just reasons for things. If this is professional football, if a team decides that they are not going to let you run the football and they are going to put enough resources to not let you run it, no matter what you do, you can't run the football. It's just that simple. And that's what the Ravens did. There were so many times they got 8 guys in the box saying, you're not running it. You're just not going to run the football. We're not going to allow you to do that. So it is what it is. But I thought the offense overall had a good day yesterday. Hey, everybody. Underdog just dropped prediction markets, spreads, totals, and team outcomes. And the best part, you can combine them with player picks for bigger multipliers. Sign up today with code Pittsburgh and make a $5 fantasy entry to get $100 in fantasy bonus entries. Prediction markets are live in 25 states, including Texas, California, and Florida. And Underdog is available in over 40 states. Prediction markets, player picks, all on Underdog. Moving to the defensive side of the football. Look, here's the thing about the defensive line. They harassed Lamar Jackson at times. I thought they should have got him down. We had 2 sacks, but I thought we should have been able to get him on the ground a little bit more, especially in Lamar Jackson's state, but it's still Lamar Jackson, people. Let's not kid ourselves. I know he's hurt, and he looked hurt, but he was still elusive, and he's still tough to bring down. There is no question. He is still tough to bring down, but they harassed him. They kind of did their thing. Here's the thing I want to point out. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith were outstanding against the run. Not good. They were outstanding against the run all game. Now, some of that was you didn't have to worry about Lamar Jackson running the football until late in the game when finally they just said, look, Lamar, you're going to have to run the ball. They keep collapsing down. They're not, there's no threat of you keeping the football. And those guys just keep crashing down. And then Lamar got free a couple of times. Well, okay, that's fine. But the bottom line is I thought the D-line played well. They attacked us up the middle some. That big run was not up the middle. It was outside off tackle. But overall, the D-line gets a C. They weren't terrible. Like, they didn't get physically whipped. Some people, you just look at the number of yards rushing, the 217, and you're thinking, okay, the offensive line got whipped. They didn't, or the D line, excuse me, got whipped, and it just wasn't the same. They got gashed a few times. They had the 55-yard run and the 19-yard run. Those were the biggest run. After that, it wasn't like these 10 and all that kind of stuff. It just we got wore down. There's no question. We got wore down, but the D line, they did their thing for the most part. For the most part, people. Linebacking core. This one again is hard. I thought they were good in coverage. I'll give them that. And you lose Malik Harrison, who got knocked out fairly early in the game. I mean, that hurts. Cole Holcomb, I thought, stepped in, and he led the team in tackles, but Cole Holcomb and Patrick Queen too many times are out of position. Too many times they're over pursuing on plays, and the Ravens are just, oh, you're out of your gap, I'm just going to run there. On Derrick Henry's 19-yard rush, it's like, oh, Patrick Queen, you're supposed to be in this gap. You over pursue. I'm just going to run where you were supposed to be, and I'm out the gate. On the 55-yard run, same thing. Patrick Queen guessed wrong and tries to run underneath. Nah, can't run underneath, buddy. And then he gets caught. And then Cole Holcomb just simply can't get off the block of Mark Andrews. I mean, look, I'm sorry. You're a middle linebacker. You can't be getting blocked by tight ends like that. You got dominated on that play. That can't happen. Just simply can't. Everybody was right. Jabril Peppers forced to play inside. You're there. You can't be getting blocked by a tight end, especially you can't get off the block and let the guy run for 55 yards. So the linebacking core, again, 217 yards rushing. What am I supposed to say? They played great? Well, they didn't, but they played good in spurts, but it's a C- for me. Maybe that's tough, but I saw what I saw. The film showed what it showed. Too much over pursuing by those guys. But again, it wasn't like they got constantly physically dominated on the day. And I'll talk about that here in a second. It just looked different than the previous two times that the Steelers played the Ravens. Now, as far as the defensive backs are concerned, I thought Brandon Echols played great. I thought James Pierre, again, did his thing. Look, Joey Porter Jr., I know people are out there, oh, he got 2 penalties. Man, those were 2 BS penalties. If let's just be honest. We're all hard on Joey Porter Jr. We all get mad because he does constantly grab. He does do that. But the penalties that he got called on, one, DeAndre Hopkins just ran right into him. Well, as a defender, I don't have to get out of your way and just let you run your route. If you run into me and I'm standing there, I don't have to just say, oh, okay, go ahead. No, that's not what has to happen. And the other one, they were hand fighting. I mean, that's a good defensive play. That was ticky tack. That's ticky tack. And again, we as Steeler fans are really hard on Joey Porter Jr. and for good reason. For good reason. But yesterday wasn't the day to do that. Not to mention, he did make the play of the game, knocked the ball away from Isaiah Likely in the end zone. Now, whether it's a touchdown or not, don't care. Like I said, we don't care. I know that's a Tomlinism, but we don't care. I don't care. They didn't call it a touchdown, did they? We've been on the other end of that. So the DBs, for me, I gave him a B- on the day. There was a couple of times that Flowers got loose. I mean, he had 124 yards receiving, so who are we kidding? One of those, a big one on Chuck Clark. A couple of times he got lost in coverage. I'm like, how's this guy this wide open? You know, especially one time in cover 2. I'm like, come on, Jabril Peppers. Cover 2, you got to sink, and there's nobody threatening you in the flat. Get depth. And he didn't do it. Either way, I just thought the DBs played a pretty good game. The one thing I will mention, Mark Andrews, 1 catch, 9 yards, 5 targets. Isaiah Likely, he had 4 catches for 24 yards. So one of the things that we brought up in the pregame about stopping the tight ends, Steelers did a pretty good job of stopping the tight ends. So overall, with the defense, look, I wouldn't say the Steelers got physically dominated. I know 217 rushing yards is still 217 rushing yards. I don't care how I try to slice it up and dice it and spin it and all this other stuff. 217 is 217, people. Okay? But it didn't look the same as the previous 2 times that the Pittsburgh Steelers played the Ravens. It did not look the same. And that's the difference. Derrick Henry had 25 carries for 95 yards. If you'd have told me that before the game, I'd have signed up for 3.8 yards a carry. Yeah, I'd have signed up for that immediately. Immediately. Now, you can't let another guy go ballistic and have 74 yards, and then Lamar Jackson, another 40 something yards on 7 carries. Now it starts to get a little lopsided, but it just didn't look like they got physically dominated. You take the two. Now, again, I'm not a big guy. Oh, you got to, if you only take these 2 plays out, well, you can't take the plays out. Okay. The 55-yard run happened. It happened. We can't erase that. You know, the big gainer by Derrick Henry, the 19-yarder. You can't take those plays away because they happened in the game. But for the most part, even with Derrick Henry, that big gain, 3.8 yards a carry. I'm telling you right now, Steeler fans, you'd have signed up for that before the game started. At 25 carries at 95 yards, you'd have signed up for that. I would have too. I gave the defense overall a C- on the day. Because again, 217 is 217. They had over 400 yards of total offense. That's not good enough. It's just not good enough. But what I will say is they made the plays at the end of the game to win it. And if you're not playing great, and let's not kid ourselves, the defense didn't play great. But when you're not playing great, the only thing that you can say is, can you make the plays at the end of the game to win the game? And the Steelers were able to do that. So you got to give them credit for that. Regardless of what else went on, the game came down to defense, can you make a play? They did. They did. Moving on to special teams. Special teams to me, good again. B plus for the special teams. Boz did his thing. When given the opportunity, he did his thing. And, for me, the big part is the coverage units and the return units. The Steelers were able to win the hidden yardage game in this football game that they had lost basically the last month. Too many times we have seen teams start at the 35, 37, damn near the 40-yard line when we're kicking the football off. Too many times we had seen that. That didn't happen in this game. And it happened from the very opening kickoff. I'm like, okay, guys, this is what we are looking for. And our return unit was good. We constantly started past the 30-yard line. So there was one time, don't get me wrong, it looked ugly. But for the most part, we were good. So B plus, like I mentioned, it's better. It was better. Now, as far as the coaching was concerned, look, Arthur Smith was very good for 3 quarters. There was one red zone trip where the Steelers settled for a field goal, and I wanted to pull out the hair that I don't have. But other than that, the plan was to be aggressive, and to attack down the field. The Steelers did that. And they didn't constantly just say that. It was almost like the Steelers understood, okay, the Ravens are not going to let us run the football, but we have to run it enough to keep them honest, even though we know that we're not going to get many yards on this play. But we got to run it to keep them honest. We got to do that to keep them honest. And the Steelers did that. Would we have liked to have more rushing yards? Yes. But I liked the game plan for the first 3 quarters from Arthur Smith. The fourth quarter had Mike Tomlin written all over it. Like, hey, let's take our foot off the gas pedal. Let's just get this one home versus saying, you know what? Let's go score 38 points. Let's go put the hammer down on them. And until that happens, which it may never happen, we've seen it over and over and over again with Mike Tomlin. It makes these games more uncomfortable than what it has to be. It just makes them more uncomfortable than what it has to be. As far as the defense was concerned, look, the defense got gashed in the running game. There's no doubt. They gave up a lot of total yards, but they made enough plays to win. And that's the key thing. Sometimes you're going to give up some yards. Maybe you call it bend, but don't break defense. Okay. But they made enough plays to win. And for me, I'll give them credit for that. The 217 was disgusting again. And you're not going to win against good competition giving up that many rushing yards. You're just not. And we're kidding ourselves if we think that the Ravens are a good football team. They're not. They're not. They get a lot of credit for maybe the last couple of years and how good the Ravens have been in previous seasons, but they're not a good football team. But but the Steelers won. And that's all you can ask for. The Steelers did enough to win the game on defense. It wasn't great. It wasn't pretty. The game plan wasn't great. But again, I mentioned this before. If you'd have told me the Steelers from off the pathetic performance that they had a week ago that are going to come to Baltimore and say Derrick Henry is going to have 25 carries for 95 yards, that's 3.8 yards a carry. Every Steeler fan in the world would have signed up for that before the game started. Every single one of them. Now, he's not the only guy who ran the football, so let's not kid ourselves. But at least when he had the football, for the most part, the Steelers did their job for the most part. And again, when the game was on the line, the Steelers made the play to win the football game. So you got to give them credit. But I give the coaching a C on the day because the offense, the defense of balance, it is what it is. But they did enough. They did enough to win the game. And for me, that has to hold a lot of water. You know, it has to hold a lot of water because it's one thing to play bad and then give up the plays to lose. The Steelers didn't do that. They didn't do that. And for stretches within the game plan and the coaching was pretty good. And that's the thing. You can't only look at the bad part about a football game and just say, okay, well, that part was bad, so the whole entire thing was bad. That's not true. That's not true. You have to look at the entire football game and then grade it based on that. And if you do that, the totality of the game, it was average. It was average. So that's why I gave him a C. And then overall, as far as the Pittsburgh Steelers in the game, I look, this was a typical Steelers-Ravens football game. We got battered. We got bruised. Guys going out of the game. 3 guys out for a concussion. Lord have mercy. Backup tackles, basically on our 4-string tackles. But they made enough plays to win. And for me, that has to mean something. Did they run the ball on us? Yes. But we were able to throw the ball on them. We just did enough to win. And sometimes in games that maybe you're not at your best in all aspects, you have to be able to do something. Look, this is a division game. None of the division games are ever going to be pretty. Even when we play the Browns, it's not going to be pretty, ladies and gentlemen. That's the difference. It's going to be ugly. So winning ugly games on the road in the division, any way you can get it, you need to be happy. So which is why I gave him a B- for the day. Because you went on the road after being embarrassed the week before, and you win a football game that not a lot of people, including I guess I did pick the Steelers, but a lot of people didn't believe that you were going to be able to win. And they were able to do that. Again, battered, bruised. They were dropping like flies out there for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's what this game is about, man. It's about that. So I love what they did. I love their effort. B- on the day overall for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So look, people, it's a win. It's a win. It doesn't have to be pretty, especially, and they're not gonna be pretty. Like I mentioned, in these division games, even at home, it's just not gonna be pretty. Not to mention, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. When's the last time the Steelers have won a game pretty? I mean, can you even think of a time that the Steelers just, oh man, boy, we look great on offense, defense, special teams, everything was clicking. No, it's just not going to be pretty. We don't have the roster for that. We don't have the roster, the coaching, whatever the case may be. But it's another win. It's another win. And we control the division at this point in time. You know, now we got to keep it going. We got to keep it going. But for this particular game, the Steelers were able to come out. I like what they did. They did enough, should I say. Maybe I don't like what they did, but they did enough to win. And that's all you can ask. Go on the road, division opponent, do enough to win. So appreciate you guys, man. As always, again, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, aloha.